Alright, so here's the truth. Recovering from a repetitive injury or an overuse injury is not always as easy as we make it out to be, but it can be done. In this video, I'm going to discuss 3 things: the cause of repetitive injury, why it can be so challenging to overcome, and how you can overcome repetitive injury. Okay, so let's talk about the cause. The cause of an overuse injury or repetitive injury is actually as the name implies. The cause of such an injury is due to repetitively stressing the same tissue the same way several times over and over and over again without giving the tissue adequate time to recuperate. The intro you saw with the mouse in this video is a perfect example of an overuse injury. At first, it can seem quite inconsequential for you to use a mouse every day repeatedly without adequate rest, until you get to a point where your body completely shuts down on you and you become sensitive to the micro movement of your finger extensors or elbow extensors. The greatest challenge with overuse and repetitive injuries is that most of the time it is very hard to let go of the action and the motion that we are doing that is causing the injury or contributing to the injury. As an example, runners with shin splints often have a hard time modifying the activities that they like to do to keep themselves sane. Software engineers have a hard time modifying their typing or using of the mouse because, in a sense, that is their livelihood. That is how they make a living. Avid climbers will find it difficult to change their main means of activity. Pottery makers just can't stop making pots. And then resistance trainers just won't stop doing bicep curls because apparently that's what attracts partners. That's actually false. A good back, a good upper back. That's a secret there. But I think you get the point, right? The most challenging part of recovering from an overuse injury or repetitive injury is giving up or finding ways to modify the activities that we really like to do for one reason or another. And most of the time that reason seems to be important to us. And the modification of activities becomes more challenging the longer it takes for the tissue to calm down and reset. And quite honestly, it can take up to 3 months or so for tissues to reset and calm down from an overuse injury. So sometimes this requires a lot of patience. And I think most people lose that patience when they have to modify activities that they love for that amount of time. So what can you do to overcome an overuse injury? First, we've talked about modify the activity that you like to do, or modify the activity that you can't stop doing. If using a mouse often is what is getting to your wrist pain or finger pain or elbow pain, then consider getting an upright ergonomic mouse. This modification may just be enough to reduce load on your finger extensors so that the muscle does not become irritable. In between that modification, you can consider taking frequent breaks if feasible. If this modification is not working, then you can go to the extreme end and use your other hand to operate the mouse. Now realize that you do not want to cause the same injury to your healthy hand if you switch the side of the hand that you're operating the mouse in. So be cautious of it and take frequent breaks if possible. And sometimes the aggravated tissue requires external support to help reset it and to help calm it down. So I will be talking about this elbow brace in my next video. Feel free to check it out on how to use it to calm certain tissues down. So yeah, check it out in my next video. The second thing that you need to do to overcome an overuse injury is to consider the mechanics that attributed to the injury. What I mean by that is that you should consider addressing mobility and strength in other areas of your body that will ultimately help you become a little more resilient to the repetitive injury that you sustained. As an example, if you're a runner with persistent shin splints, one of the things that you can consider doing while your shin resets is to work on your glute and optimize your running form so that when your shin is ready and has reset itself, you'll be ready to go without inducing as much load through your shin. The third thing that you should consider to help overcome a repetitive or overuse injury is soft tissue work. Doing soft tissue work along the injured tissue can be quite helpful to help nourish that tissue, to help it reset, especially if you've had the injury for more than 2 to 3 months. Okay, so the fourth thing that you want to be is to be very patient. Be very diligent about continually modifying your activities. Be very diligent about the soft tissue work, and then be very diligent about addressing other mechanics that will ultimately help you out. If you're doing all these 3 consistently, then I would definitely encourage you to continue to be very patient. It can take up to 3 months for the tissue to reset if it is really irritable. But with your persistence, you will start to notice that the tissue that has been irritated for so long will start to tolerate a bit more load than before. And with that said, that will go into my fifth point on how to get over an overuse injury. Take advantage of the little load that your tissue can tolerate now and slowly build resilience from there. Do not be over ambitious here. Start as low as possible. Keep your pain as minimal as possible. So for my bicep curlers out there with bicep tendonitis, this might just mean to start with 1 pound and curling with a 1 pound for a few reps or so. Once your muscle starts to continue to adapt to the little loads that you're introducing to the tissue that's irritated, then you can start to incrementally increase the load and incrementally build resilience into that muscle. And eventually you start to notice that you can do a little bit more. You can start to do more of the stuff that you love to do that the muscle was limiting you from. But hold up, there's one last important thing to do here once the muscle or tissue gets to that point. And the last point being functional reintegration of the tissue. When you get to the point when you start to notice that the muscles can tolerate some of the activities that you love to do, that's when you can take advantage of it and start to functionally reintegrate the tissue or muscle back to familiar grounds. So for my runners with shin splints, functional integration here may mean tweaking your form to reduce unattenuated forces on the shins. And for my rock climbers with upper body related injury, functional integration here may mean you finding ways to utilize your shoulder blade muscles a little bit more while cleaning up your climbing technique to reduce unattenuated forces on your upper body or upper extremities. All right, so these are the things that you need to do to get you to recover from an overuse injury. Now, if you've listened to everything and you're thinking, Manny, this process is not easy, then you actually understand it is a complicated process. Sometimes it takes fine tweaks here and there. If you get overwhelmed, if you get stuck, feel free to seek professional help. If you feel like you cannot afford professional help or don't have the means to do that, then these are my golden guidelines for you to get through and rehab your overuse or repetitive injury. Thank you so much for watching and happy healing. I would definitely appreciate if you found value out of this video, and I'll love it even more so if I saw you back here again as I'm trying to build a community that cares about their well-being and the human body. I'll see you in a few days.